and welcome to Living One. My name is Olivia Crossman. I'll be your host. Living One is a monthly webinar series in which presenters from around the world share their vision for a future where all Earth beings live as one community in peace, dignity, and freedom. We ask the question, we know what's wrong, but what does right look like? This last fall marked the beginning of Living One's 4th year, but today these conversations are more important than ever, for they are more than conversations. They are opportunity to build community, salve for the isolating wounds of our time. Today, we have the 6th and final session of our winter series, Animal Trauma Responsive Care and Alternative Medicine. Over the last 6 weeks, we heard the perspectives of 6 individuals who've dedicated their lives to animal psychological and physical healing. We are very excited for today's final conversation in the series and delighted to have you join us as we explore this important topic together. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that we are all currently on various different Indigenous lands. I am currently on the ancestral homelands of the Council of the Three Fires, which includes the Ojibwa, Ottawa, and Potawatomi. This land exists also as a place of trade with other Indigenous communities, including the Ho-Chunk, Miami, Menominee, Sauk, and Meskwaki. The Krulo Center for Nonviolence, located in Southern Oregon, is also the homelands of the grizzly bear, Takelma, and gray wolf. To recognize the land is to recognize the lasting effects of colonization, genocide, and oppression that still impact Indigenous communities today, but it is also an expression of gratitude and appreciation for the land and for all those whose homelands we live and work on. In the 6th of the 6-part series, we welcome Elke Riesterer. Elke was born in southern Germany and immigrated to the US in 1983. She is a certified massage therapist and a registered Jin Shin Do Practitioner with the broad experience of having worked with humans and animals for over 30 years. She has volunteered as an all-species body therapist at the Oakland, California Zoo since 1997 and uses a combination of body-centered therapies, including her most favorite modality, the Tellington Touch. In general, her work centers around the complex well-being issues of elephants worldwide, with an emphasis on helping heal symptoms of PTSD. Besides elephants, Elke works with Aldabra tortoises, monitor lizards, snakes, giraffes, and sea life, including dolphins and sea lions. Elke has lectured and traveled extensively and in particular visited Africa multiple times to provide healing touch for residents at the Elephant and Rhino Orphanage in Nairobi, Kenya, Lilayi Elephant Nursery in Lusaka, Zambia, and Asian elephants in Thailand and India. In addition to many exotic species, Elke also enjoys working with horses, dogs, and other home animals. Her work has appeared in numerous articles and radio and television programs. Elke is also the co-founder of World Elephant Alliance. Before we begin, let me share a few logistical notes. Elke will be speaking for about 45 minutes, after which we will have 15 minutes for question and answer. In order to proceed in a timely manner, we do ask that you please send your questions along in the chat during Elke's presentation, and we will read them all out after she is finished. For anyone who isn't familiar with the Zoom chat function, if you move your cursor towards the bottom of your screen, you will see a number of icons appear, one of which is the chat function towards the center left of your screen. If you click on that, the chat will appear where you can type any questions or comments as we go. We have 2 members of our Krulos community here with us today, Jenny and Diksha, who will be monitoring the chat throughout our time together. Also, please note that the Zoom session will be recorded, so if you would feel more comfortable leaving your camera off or changing your Zoom name, please feel free to do so. Finally, we ask that unless you are currently speaking, you keep your microphone muted to avoid any unintended interruptions. So without further ado, we welcome Elke Riesterer. Hi, Elke.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me. Wow. The last day or two, I really looked at all my material I have from my work and all the books and diaries. And I was just like, my goodness, it refreshed my memories, because I'm doing this for so long. So I'm just actually reading it. I needed to write down a little bit, this and this and this and this, and then we can go into more detail if this is okay, So you want to know how I started, my arc. And so I wrote, my Draw to Bodywork sparked when I was 15 years old. And I dealt with the scoliosis of my spine. My doctor prescribed massage. That set a seed for my coming up massage practice with humans and then spread into animal healing work due to my horse, Electra. I was introduced to the Tellington Touch, also named TTouch, and attended several trainings and workshops to study this particular method. It led me to offer working with other horses and home animals. In 1994, volunteering at the Dolphin Research Center in Florida, I was there for 1 month, I was able to use the TTouch method successfully on 3 dolphins. These highly intelligent mammals are super tactile and engage that way freely. I made, after almost a month, a breakthrough with the head keeper as she witnessed the effect of what I was doing. In 1996, I went to the Sheldrake Orphanage, and my first client, if you so will, was an injured rhino called Scuddy. Scuddy had a leg injury, was diagnosed with a leg injury. At that time, it was really hard to get any x-rays, and they didn't really have that. So Daphne Sheldrake, Dame Daphne Sheldrake, how she's called now, was open to let me explore TTouch with this rhino and also with a few little baby elephants. Then after this, it opened my entrance to the Oakland Zoo. So till today, almost 25 years, I work regularly at the Oakland Zoo using the touch method, the TTouch method, and acupressure on various animals. It is a hands-on modality using a number of circular touches, deep and light, depending on the skin and the specific area under my hands. The focus is on the nervous system and the 4 brainwaves. There's a 5th actually, but the 4 brainwaves are alpha, beta, delta, and theta. And then the 5th one would be gamma, which is not really that well researched according to what I learned. The easiest terminology would be naming this type of body work massage, but it is actually not. First, I do at the zoo. First, I do the elephants in the morning, and then afterwards, I tend to reptiles like monitor lizards, python snakes, and big Aldabra tortoises, plus 1 African spur called Soila. Talking about snakes, I took once care of a heavy-bodied 13-foot boa constrictor at my home. That turned out to be a fascinating experience. Slow-moving and exquisite of her world around her. We spent time in our grassy garden or having her on my lap, breathing calmly with her while doing my soft circular motions on her body. She often slept with me in our bed, curled up next to me, or even resting lengthwise on my body. My husband wasn't so fond of that, but that's what I did. So the environment, I think, is maybe interesting to know. The work with elephants and other animals, it really differs where you do it, how the environment around you is it suitable? For instance, that at my TTouch time with the elephant is on a time schedule. So because the elephants need to be on exhibit at a certain time, I have to handle noise levels that conflict sometimes greatly with creating a quiet environment to let the animal person drop into the relaxation space that supports overall well-being in all species, human or non-human. Providing these sessions with an energy field of calm is deeply beneficial for the nervous system. So, Medunda, which is maybe of great interest, Medunda was a precious elephant that had an upsetting and troubled history. She died at the Oakland Zoo when was 50 years old. I think it's 3 years ago now. It was quick, and she likely had a stroke. She came from the San Diego Zoo and was beaten heavily there. It was in 1988, all over the press. because she was disobedient and supposedly attacked a keeper. Disciplinary measures was a common thing in zoos back in the days. It is said that she did not get along with other elephants. She was a sensitive person, had obvious PTSD. I remember well how fear was present when I met her in 1997. I clearly saw the scars on her head from the relentless beatings. It was infuriating. The Oakland Zoo staff was very gentle and especially loving with her. My TTouch work was extremely helpful to calm her and restore her psychological bruising, her psychological bruised being. So lots of sweet and nuanced memories of her. She loved the body work. Then, because I went several times to Africa, the Shelter Trust was my favorite location and go to. In 1996, I had this wonderful experience with a rhino and young traumatized baby elephants who sadly lost their family mostly due to poaching. They had nightmares. I had various experiences each time I visited Kenya, a bit more with the female babies. There were more female babies actually at that time. One male baby yet was keeping by himself, going out on a daily bushwalk with me, but walking along, I was able to coach him to make friends with another elephant baby doing TTouch on both at the same time. It was truly heartwarming, and it is nestled securely in my brain's memory because that was so effective to bring another baby close to this one who wanted to be by himself, was afraid of the other, was still traumatized. And so I have that very vivid memory of that particular incident and experience. So, and then the Aldabra tortoises, which I work with at the zoo. So Aldabras have different personalities, same with other animals, but males to females are very pronounced. Yeah. The boys I'm related to are very easy in being receptive to touch. So the females need more time. They're more hesitant, but I made inroads with all of them. They all know my voice and pop up their heads most of the time. Then I worked with two monitor lizards, and one in particular years back was Garlene. What a wonderful experience I had with this female reptile. She loved to lie on my body while in a reclining position, trusting me profoundly. My breathing went along with hers as I let the TTouch relax us both. Now I'm with another one, a male, whose personality is more reserved, but still I have some nice relaxing moments with him doing TTouch on his feet and tail. So how it affects me, the effect of my work is that it showed me a kaleidoscope of behavior and modes we all human and non-humans have. Diving in the world of nonverbal communication was and is an enriching experience. Listening to and feeling that other being is a heart-opening experience. It is and can be meditative. It can be deeply peaceful to body, mind, and spirit, stimulates intuitive sensing, receiving information on what is the right thing to do. And in addition, I worked on giraffes at the Oakland Zoo, engaging in long tongue massages with loving strokes, doing TTouch on neck and ears. I worked with a young zebra at the Shelter Orphanage in Kenya, and one at a zoo exploring the possibility of TTouch. And then I had also a wonderful experience years back with a Scottish Highland cow. Her name is Crazy. Crazy at the Oakland Zoo, who laid down voluntarily for me on occasion receiving the body work. And when she retired at PAS, she remembered me well after not have seen me for a few years. I called her name, and she came over and licked me right away, passionately. It warmed everyone's heart who accompanied me. And last, I also worked with a sea lion, famous Saki, at Moss Landing Marine Lab, and one other named Nemo. Jennifer Seelings is the researcher and management person at that place. So that's a little bit of everything. And now we can talk more about things in detail.
Thank you so much for that. That's what a detailed arc, and I think it gives us such a good understanding of everything you've done over your incredible career so far.
Yeah, it's been a lot. So is there anything one will ask me, or you want to ask me to go more
absolutely. In? To start off, do you want to just tell us a little bit more about TTouch, Tellington Touch? I know you referenced like what that is, but maybe for anyone who's not familiar, if you want to go into a little bit more detail about that.
The Tellington Touch has been used for, 40 years at least, mainly with horses, and then also spreading to other home animals. So Linda Tellington Jones is the founder of this organization, and she's a horsewoman, and she started to develop these circular touches as she had a horse ranch in Southern California, I think, and came to this realization that these circular touches, which is a clockwise motion. So if you put up your hand and you go to 6 o'clock on the clock, you make the circle 6, 12, 3, 6, and a little bit over to 8 and 9. And then you move to the next spot. It's a circular motion, but you do not rub. You go and grab the skin and do these circles. And you don't have to know anatomy. You can do this all over the body. So I go intuitively. I feel like I'm going a certain area. I feel what the response is under my tissue. I mean, that's the concept of it. You follow what your intuition leads you to. It includes working on the mouth, because there's a lot of emotions, it's emotional, the limbic system. So that often helps with a certain behavior and relaxing that area, working with the ears as well. You know, there's lots of acupressure points in the ears. So that's the method. And it is really, every animal is suitable to use this touch on, you know. So she wrote over 30 books on this method. So if somebody is interested, you type in Linda Tellington Jones, and then you get information on that. That was really helpful for me to use that method on all these animals I have been touching. And then, of course, I use also acupressure. It's more like a shiatsu acupressure, if you're familiar with that. So you use your full hand and you pressure, go along the tensed area, often where the muscles are really strong. Animals hold fear, you know, so like elephants, I work on their tail area and on their, you know, the whole butt area. And usually they really like that. Most of the elephants I ever worked on, I work now about on 100 elephants worldwide. Yeah. And that was where I got the most response. It was the most leaning in, feeling it. They start, you know, their bowels. I mean, they start, sometimes they have a bowel movement after a while, but a lot of times it's releasing gas, you know, and, you know, defecating, urinating. Which is also, I mean, defecating and urinating. If we talk about the picture of fear, it can also doing that, when elephants, like under stressful situation, they've been beaten, they have started urinating, defecating. We know this from the circus world, how they train these elephants. There's horrible stories about that, and that's what the elephant do, because it's a stressful response. But when I do it, it's a release, it's a relaxation, So it has two meanings.
Yeah. Beautiful. That's incredible.
Elke, I just wanted to ask or make a point. Maybe you can elaborate more. You brought up the whole idea that this is really addressing the nervous system. And I think that's such an important point, because the nervous system obviously is, associated with the psyche, right? Yeah. And emotions. And it's a real contrast to kind of the stereotypic image of massage, where maybe it's changed by now. But massage for many years, and maybe even now in some circles, is kind of like, oh, it's kind of a elective, it's kind of a nice thing to do to relax. But the way you're talking about it is a much deeper approach when you're talking about the nervous system and the psyche.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And massage, I do massage, but I weave all kinds of different modalities with my clients, with my human clients, and it is important, you all maybe have gotten massage somewhere. There's all these massage places. You get a quick massage, a foot massage. Everything is mechanical. It's boom, 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 boom. Yeah. So you do a little bit of relaxation, but the depth of it is not there. It's very frustrating, actually. I mean, I go on purpose there and do what are these Asian massage places, what they offer. And it's like, okay, I can handle it for 10 minutes or 15 minutes, but then it's enough, I mean, it does relax a little bit, but there is no depth to it. So even the Tellington Touch addresses that specifically, and I use it sometimes too, but also the way I'm doing massage, address the nervous system in different ways as well. And it's a slow motion and a holding. And then I use some acupressure points, which I get acupuncture myself as some of the same points. And that is like you drifting into a different space. And that's where your brain is relaxed. My intention with the animals in captivity is really to have their brain drift off a little bit and not being on guard all the time. But you need to have patience. You have to be able to wait. You have to be able to breathe. You have to be able to step back and let the moment unfold. It's a meditation, actually, and that's when you reach that other being, when it doesn't feel like it needs to be performed for you. And that's not what I want, So, but in a captive environment, it's really difficult. I think that people have, like when I'm working at a zoo, there's well-intentioned, but never really a deeper understanding. And maybe I think what I now have to say, you have to do some of your own work. You have to go and go into what I wrote. I wrote also poems, I made one little thing. I said, embrace your pain and the gates to consciousness will open. And a lot of times humans do not want to go into their real pain, in their pain in their body, they push it away, don't want to talk about it, And so when I wanted to bring this across to people who handle animals, it is not easy, because I feel like they think, what is she talking about, and sometimes I think I'm just not good enough to bring this really across, or have the right language, or it's I think what we're dealing with in a captive environment is the institution. It's an institution, it has a structure. And everybody needs to fit into this structure. And if you want to do something different, you work in this institution, it's more difficult because you deal with so many different people. They're on different level of consciousness, And so how do you operate on that? And then maybe you get judged and blamed and, whoa, that's a crazy idea. I mean, there's all kinds of voices, and so I feel like I pushed on a lot of things in my work there, but at the same time, I had to say it's only so much what I can achieve, because I'm not be there every day, and maybe also I'm not, I said one time to the curator, I'm sorry, I don't have a PhD. Maybe that is more accepted in our culture, because you have to have that in order to be credible. And that's what I often felt, that it maybe would have been different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, that sounds like a significant challenge, and I imagine the backlash you've received from people has been with you your whole career. Do you have any moments or stories that you think illustrate that well that you'd like to share?
Well, it's again the time frame. It's the when everything is limited to a certain time, you cannot really make the progress you actually wanted to make. Because it is different when I'm free, when it's free flowing, like with the tortoises. I don't have a time frame. I can spend a long time with them. But as elephants are so my passion, I really wish so many times I would have the time to really see where we can go with it. But I have to accept I can't, I can't push the system into something else. I did have a time, well, I have to go back to that with Medunda. There was a time when I was able to work. There's a pass up to the exhibit, and I could be with her for quite longer time than I in the restraining shoot. And I want you to understand, or people to understand, that the way I'm working is a place where I'm protected. It's called protected contact. I sent you 2 pictures, so maybe some people don't understand what is she talking about. Where does she work? It's not a chain link fence or anything. It's a hands-on, but I'm protected from the elephant who maybe can kick me or use his trunk. Here we go. You see these 2 pictures. That is when I'm working on the hind legs, working on the tail, and then this is one on the side here where I'm working on the front leg. So you see, I have access to the body, and I have to watch my hands. That the elephant makes a move, and I don't want to be close to the metal bar that my hand maybe gets squeezed. So. Because when I work on the side, the elephants know that they lean into me, their body goes right there, and they give me the body work is all about listening and feeling the body, and letting your hands go where the comfort comes. So the tissue becomes soft. The elephant pushes into my hand. So that tells me, oh, that feels good, So it's a dance, and often, there will be calling, give me your foot, please. And then, they're trained to put the foot here, because this is the place, this called restraining shoot, where they get husbandry done. They get looked with their nails are okay, their pads, the feet, any injuries they may have, that can be addressed by the zoo staff. But in this way, I work the same way. With Medunda, I was working in a path where she walks up to the exhibit, and she was considered a safe elephant, and so I could work with her, and I did. I can actually read from my diary, if you want me to read what I wrote, a session with her. If this not takes too much time, I will do that. And I have also a poem which I can share. I have a lot of things, but I want to be mindful of everybody's time.
No, that sounds beautiful. I'm sure everyone would love to hear your journal and your poem.
Okay. So here I wrote with Medunda. So she was wetted down. Often this was in the summer, and I get, it's hot and, they get sprayed, they get a bath basically in the restraining chute. And then she was walking out of that, and then she walked up this path, and we engaged along the path. She was eating the hay I had spread for her. And while she was munching on it, I touched her all over her face, below and above the eyes, both sides, also touching and moving her gently on her tusks, worked the inner ears, slided to her eyelashes as stroking down her upper eyelids. Acupressure on her flanks on the right, combined with a little chest work. So then she started to rub. Then she started to rub the dust of her body, and I called it like dusty lotion. So, and which is to shield and protect her body, and also to eliminate the itching which seemed to occur from being wet. So I watched that more than once, also on and off actually. And then the elephants in the wild doing that, After being hosed down, I see all of them. After being hosed down, I see her and all of them itching, and I wonder about that. Is it just the water or the chlorine in the water? What does it? Maybe it is the nature of it, and the dusting which you see in the wild along, always taking place after a bath, is the combo to a blissful feeling with a purpose. When Medunda went to the path, little by little, I accompanied her, stopping with her and offering her the beloved tongue massage. This time with many avocados and grapefruits. What delight she must feel as she moves into the layers of body trance. She drifts away from me a couple of times with far away glazy eyes. Trunk hanging loose, then some sucking on the lower end of her trunk, then coming back to me for more. Then she gurgled softly, looking very relaxed with half eyes closed. Her body powdered in reddish dust, like she belonged into a picture of a landscape that was long time back her natural home. She gave me a branch to say thank you, and we blew a greeting or goodbye towards the end. Her warm breath all over me, my face was gratefully received. It is of such preciousness when, after some initial time, a true and real interspecies connection takes place. Like with humans, a lot of armor need to be loosened and shaken off. She also peed and pooped close to halfway of the session. Also, she went over to the chain and let it run through her mouth after some initial tongue work. I had some snuggly feelings with her as we started, and otherwise ever-widening trust in our exchange. I mean, I just wrote this, maybe not really formulated right for publication, but I wanted to give you a taste of it.
Oh, it's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. She sounds like such an incredible individual.
She was so dear to me. She was an amazing, amazing person. Absolutely. And how she came out of that horrible experience being beaten in San Diego, and what became of her at the Oakland Zoo is really remarkable. It's such a change, I mean, she really recovered, and she got immense amount of love there.
Yeah. That's beautiful. How long did you work with her, and how did you come to work with her?
In 1997. When I started at the Oakland Zoo, that was when I met all the elephants there, and I started working with them regularly. Yeah, because I was at that time I met the curator of the Oakland Zoo at the Performing Animal Welfare Society conference, and that's how I shared my work at Daphne Sheldrake's, and that's how I was invited to the Oakland Zoo.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. How was your experience working at the Sheldrake Trust? That must have been amazing.
It was wonderful. I mean, the little baby elephants, I mean, it's just so endearing. I mean, I sponsor some of their babies. I watched them, what happens to some of the elephants I worked with, and they are now in the wild and they have babies and they bring the babies to the keeper. I mean, this relationship. See, I wanted to say something also when we're just talking about relationship with the humans. What I'm missing in this world of where in the zoo world also, I'm trying to have elephants being elephants. But these elephants, they are dependent on humans. And I feel touch is so important. So, I mean, not saying everybody should touch the animals, but specific people, I think it's a very good thing to do. Elephants are extremely tactile, but it is not supported in a zoo that you have that kind of relationship, yet you kind of touchy-feely and some elephants, they want to do that, but there is a boundary created that's not accepted. That's maybe, I think there's a lot about safety and worry about safety, and I understand that, because what happens when an animal injures a person in a zoo, it's a big outcry. And, so again, all this is about nuances and fine-tuning and see what is okay. I mean, yes, elephants should be elephants. Like Scott Blythe at Brazil Sanctuary, which I highly support. There's more of it's a natural thing. When an elephant, you can touch them and say something, and it's just that whole thing. Yes, they have elephant friends, but maybe they want to have some human friends too. And Daphne Sheldrake's place is all about that. The keepers nurture these babies that they can live in the wild, and they become these foster parents. But then they live in the wild, and then they come back. And when they have an injury, they come back, and they let these foster parents treat the wound, or they say, "Oh, look, I have a baby," and they come with a wild baby. I mean, it's so endearing. My foster child Murera, which I worked with in Kenya, she is now a mother. She just gave birth to a little girl, and they were so surprised. The first time she gave the birth to a baby girl in Umani Springs, which is a kind of a halfway house. They have some elephants, they have been injured by people or fallen in somehow. She had a leg injury. She was not really an elephant who can freely live in the wild because of her basically handicapped. And but then one time she was not in the stockade at night. In the daytime, they go to the wild with them. And then she was gone for 4 days, and then suddenly, in that time, a bull mounted her, supposedly. Nobody saw it. And then, elephant's gestation is 22 months. And then suddenly it takes a while to see an elephant gaining their weight. And suddenly the keeper said, I think she's pregnant. And then she gave birth, and an easy birth. She disappeared in the bush. I mean, you can read about it. It's so wonderful. And here she has a baby girl now. And then comes to it, because elephants learn from their communities, a matriarch society. So the younger females, they learn from the older one how to raise a child. And so, okay, she had milk, but she didn't let the baby go on her tits and drink on her breasts, So the keepers milked the elephant, the mama, and gave the baby the bottle. But after 11 days, suddenly she got, oh, I can let that baby nurse. And she put the leg forward, and now the baby is nursing. It's just endearing, I mean, it's just so wonderful that these human parents, foster parents, do such a great job. And it's all males. Basically, another thing in the elephant world is, is so dominated by males. I mean, we're going to, there's a whole other thing with me talking about India and Thailand and all that where I went. But here in Africa, you have all these men, but they get carefully selected, that they have that really kind of female way of being, which is important to handle these young ones, But it shows me that, the touch, it's nothing wrong with people touching an animal. Touch is healing. I'm such a proponent of this. But then I watch people touching often just unconsciously, just go rubbing, and you need to bring your brain into it. You know what you're doing. See, the Tellington Touch is all about that. The circular touches engages the right and the left brain, and you want to know you're doing this touches. It slows you down. You center. You breathe with what you're doing, and that brings you more into harmony with the animal and the being under your hands. Just this kind of stroke. It's nice. It's not that it's doing nothing, but I'm always teaching about mindful touch if you want to go deeper. But it also requires that you be mindful with yourself in your life. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I mean, as far as you mentioned your first experience with using this kind of touch on your horse, you said Electra. Did you have a mindfulness practice established before working with massage like this, or was that something that developed kind of as your work developed?
I think it's really, I come from a very intuitive place, So when I was 15 and I had a scoliosis and I got massage, it kind of, I tapped into this world of this is very healing. And intuitively, I did some massage on my girlfriends when they felt they were stressed or they had tension, or maybe they were just before they had their period. Sometimes they get low back pain, and how helpful this was. And then, yes, I did some workshops on massage massage and shiatsu, but it was just something given to me where it was not difficult for me to. And so all that being focused and present has always been easy for me.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I know we have a question in the chat, so I want to make sure to leave some time for that. We can transition over if that sounds good to you.
Yes, sure.
Our first question is from Tracy. She's wondering if you would be willing to demonstrate Tellington Touch, maybe using your arm to demonstrate.
Okay, so if you have my arm here, I would go here and I envision the clock. So I would say, here's 6 o'clock. So I go 6, 12, 3, 6, 8, and maybe a little bit to 9.
Elke, we can't actually see what you're doing.
Oh, let's see. Is that better?
Maybe stand or scoot back a little bit. Oh, there. That's great.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I see myself now. Okay, I'll do that. So you envision here 6, then you go to 12, to 3, to 6, and to 8. So 6 o'clock, 12, 3, 6, 8. So it's this one circle. And when you then, do this a lot, you just know when you're done with the circle. And then you go to the next place and you do the circle, and you do the next place to the circle. And you go with the tissue. If it's very muscular, then you go deeper. And if it's a soft around the eye, you go very light. So there's these modifications. And if you wanted to read a book, and so I was telling, because it explains it very well, how to do these touches. They have like cards, and they have also different names for the touch. Sometimes you can do a touch like this, with a full hand. So there's it's a whole set of cards, basically, how to do it, to help people to do that right, and use it in different ways. Depending on the situation.
Sure. What was the name
Thank
of
you
that
very
book?
much.
Oh.
I hope that helps. Yeah.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you for your question. Elke, could you repeat the name of that book, and I'll put it in the chat for everyone who wants to maybe find it.
Well, there's many books. I can't remember one specific. You just Google Linda Tellington Jones, Tellington-Jones. And you will find so much about it.
That's great. Thank you.
They do webinars also, It's really well presented. And I mean, she travels all over the world, just this, and like in Germany, the horse world knows very well about her, and she goes out to this special horse shows, and I mean it's very interesting, and it's a method which is recognized and applauded, and help many horses, and horses who go jumpers and dressage and all that,
Yeah, beautiful. That's great. Just for everyone who's here, I did type her name into the chat, so feel free to explore that as you want.
Yes,
it sounds like a very useful resource.
Would really recommend that.
Yeah.
And I haven't talked about India, and I work with we did a study there. I work with bulls in Kerala. And, I don't know if people know about these temple festivals they do in India. It's just unbelievable what's happening with these animals who have to stand still in a circle in a half moon, and then they have all these ceremonies and music and instrument and firecrackers, and it's just horrendous what's happening there. And they're doing this for years and years, every year, So that was a really hard experience to watch that. It's just heartbreaking, and the stress level, and elephants kill people. There's always a mahout getting killed because they're disciplined them and make them, stand in the hot sun. And if you guys are interested in that whole topic also, there is a woman, Sangeeta Iyer, and she wrote a book, God in Shackles. God in Shackles. And she's a friend of mine, and she is relentless going after what's happening in India with the captive elephants. But I work with some of these bulls, and we explored how the body therapy works on these elephants, and checking on the blood pressure and see that going down, and and that was just a deep experience to have done that. And then I was in the northern part of India, in Assam, and that was a park. That's the best well-run national park in India, and that was totally different because the elephants were not under that kind of stress, and it was more like they were patrol animals for patrolling the park. There were rhinos, and I did also work with many of them. And I was there twice, and the mahout said, "Oh, that elephant recognized you. She knows you." After a few years, So yeah, I don't know. It's a lot to say about that experience too. Again, what I mentioned a moment ago about males taking care of elephants. It's different in Kenya with the orphanage, but in general, you have a lot of men in charge of elephants, and they have trained them in Thailand and in India, and the belief is he has to be a man, I guess, to work with such a mighty animal. And there's a lot of pain, what I see, and I'm very engaged. I'm an activist on all these issues. We talk at the World Elephant Alliance about these things, about animals in that environment over there in Asia, and then we talk about the wild, what happens, encroachment, and not enough habitat for the animals, and it's just an endless thing, and it's just it's wide, it's big and wide. So,
and I know you were the co-founder of the World Elephant Alliance. I imagine these experiences that you've had around the world really informed that. Do you want to, before we continue with the questions in the chat, is there anything else you'd like to add about that? Share with us about that.
About the World Elephant Alliance?
Yeah, and your experience co-founding that.
Oh, there was a Free the Oregon Zoo Elephants. There was a conference a few years back, and that's when many people came. Gay was there too, and Dana Metzger was there as well. And that's when we engaged on all the issues elephants face in our world. And so there were different speakers, and out of that came that some of us felt we needed to have a small an organization, a group. And so we were a handful of people, and we founded a World Elephant Alliance, and we have monthly meetings, and where we talk about whatever is up to share. And an elephant here and there should go to sanctuaries. We engage on that. What is the situation? How much progress we are having? We have a veterinarian on our team, so we also do spotlights on different sanctuaries and put them on our website. We have people that can write a blog. And so that there's a lot of these things which we, engage on.
That's incredible. What great work. I know it's making such an incredible difference.
Well, you have to keep working and chipping away from old beliefs and bring people to a better place in their relationship with animals. It's so important. And as I say, being mindful, doing some of your own work, and engaging with this a certain level of spirituality, and that all creatures have a right to live on this planet, and we have to stop exploiting them, hurting them, finding a language and learning. I mean, it's full of nuances. So I wrote the elephant connection. This one poem I wrote. How many times did I long for you? How often did my heart beat for you? It has been countless times. Your pictures are on my walls. Your rumbles echo in my body. The smell of your dung I welcome. I tolerate the dust you throw. I admire your strength. I'm aware that you could hurt me, and I accept the possibility. I'm taken by the wisdom of your tribe. Female leadership in full display.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Back into our questions from the chat, we have a question from Mike. He wants to know if this modality will alleviate pain with colic and torsion or impactions and lead to resolution of these problems, avoiding surgical intervention.
It can. Yeah, it definitely can, because it's not the ultimate. You have to. I have worked actually in India, in Kerala, with an elephant who was constipated, but she was constipated for a long time. So I worked the tail, I worked the area about the anus, and there was some relaxation. There was a little bit of release and a little bit of poop coming. But it was just, I had veterinarians watching me this. They were impressed about it, but it was really, I was only there a limited time. If I would have been there, days and days, maybe, but eventually the elephant was not saved, so she actually died. So I would always encourage doing that, to do some body work on an animal who has a colic. On horses, you can do that. And so I did work on the elephants at Oakland too. I mean, everything comes up once in a while, and it is helpful when you do some body work on that area and give some release and see that the system can work better,
Mhm.
You can even work with normal massage. If you do mindful massage, it can make some, it's all about holding. It's not only the tissues and physiologically, it's the mental state, one is in, where your mental state can support your physical state.
Mhm.
It goes in, it weaves together, goes hand in hand.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Mike, for your question. Our next question is, how or does PTSD differ from grief with animals and or humans? Can the touch help or be appropriate?
Say this again. You were a little mumbled.
How does PTSD differ from grief with animals and or humans? Can the touch help or be appropriate?
Yeah, I do think the touch definitely can help, because we have PTSD also in soldiers, people coming from war zones. PTSD, Gay is the expert on that, to talk about the reactions you see, but, there is suddenly a reaction often comes out of nowhere. So an animal who has PTSD is suddenly dropping into another experience as something that touches maybe touches the experience they have now, or they think it touches that, and then they can kind of lash out. They could snap at you. I mean, if you think about a dog or a horse could kick you, and an elephant could lash out with his trunk or bang at something. And then that's what I have also experienced with one of our particular elephants at the zoo, that suddenly there's a trigger and boom, it goes into the metal, or just a bump. But then a minute later, it's different. It's forgotten. It's gone. So it's these sparks.
That's very interesting. Like they would just move on from it.
Yes, it doesn't, particularly when you hold a calming space. I mean, if you would be, making noises or call on the animal in a certain way, stop this or whatever, that would amplify it. But if you stay back and breathe and say, it's okay, girl, it's all fine. Just relax. You speak softly and warmly. You need to speak from your heart. And that transcends these animals. I mean, elephants are highly intelligent. They understand your language, where you're coming from, or what place you come from. They know, That's when it helps to not keep going like that reaction, It's so much fine-tuning. And if one can do that, it's remarkable. I was in Thailand at Lek's place, Elephant Nature Park. And I worked with an elephant who had, I think she had also intestinal issues. I can't remember the details now, but I was able to work with her. And I had this this is a perfect example when you have a group of women around you who hold the energy, who are holding the space in a positive way, in a warm way, in a heart-centered way. And they did that, and there were several of them. And it was so amazing. Amazing how I felt, what I was giving to the animal, the chance for the animal to feel better. It was all supported by that circle. But when you have not that, when you have people, oh, what is this person doing? And have all kinds of, even if they don't say it, but it comes out, you feel it, the energy filled. If you know about energy, I can walk into some place and I feel a certain energy and I say, I don't want to be in that energy because it's hostile, it's not warm, it's not love centered. And I want to be in energy where things are held in love. That makes all the difference. It makes all the difference in every session you do with any animals, no matter what animal it is, you know.
It's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. And carries so well into life, like you say, and just different energies in different spaces.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, energy work is powerful. Energy work and supporting energy is wonderful. It's healing. It would heal all the people. I mean, people, also humans. There is so much trouble in this world, so much pain, so much. It's just agonizing when I watch and listen and hear what's happening in our landscape, in our political landscape. And I said, oh my God, it just pains my heart. And I also think that a lot of these people are in pain. There's a lot of pain everywhere. We need something else to break through that, you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. From Dee, we have in the chat, good morning. I'm grateful for this group of like-minded, heart-centered humans. The horrendous treatment of animals is always an open wound and one that can rarely be discussed openly. Humanity and finding their humanity and relationship with animals and nature will find and create their own healing. From my own experience, pain means a frozen moment that is signaling an SOS. Touch or a thought to change the fixation on that moment will allow the mind to come out of the flight, fight, freeze, sympathetic nervous system and back into parasympathetic state for repair and regeneration. There's no question attached, but I'm not sure.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. Very nice. I wanted to say what I also wrote is one heart can never be big enough to hold a world in such utter despair. And that's why we need many hearts. We need many hearts to join, you know, to shift.
Community.
Yes.
Beautiful. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing your name right, but Rogers added to her question from earlier about the elephant with fecal impaction. Is manual de-impaction ever done or giant-sized enemas?
Is female impaction ever done?
Fecal impaction. Is manual de-impaction ever done?
You mean if they do something about the impaction? Yeah, I think that you use enemas for that, to help that. To my knowledge, you know, it's a common thing they do. They did that in India when I was in India to try to help that, you know. But I think sometimes it's really hard. I mean, in this environment in Asia, in India, they get really bad food. The diet is not healthy, you know. I mean, giving them all the time all these palm leaves, which is, you know, not enough nutrients. I mean, when I'm thinking about what an elephant needs, it needs all various browse to have, you know, they need. I mean, that's at the Oakland Zoo. They're fantastic about giving the enrichment part of having constantly food, having browse, they get also fruits and vegetables, and it's the natural thing. An elephant keeps moving and needs that food. In India, in the temple elephants, I mean, gosh, it's it was devastating to me how poor the diet is, and that leads also much more to impactions. Yeah,
Did that answer your question? Did I ask it correctly? Would you like to add anything thing? Good. Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Thank you for your question. Our next one in the chat is from Eileen. She says, "Thank you for this presentation. I love the spiritual moments of silent communication with animals. I find that most animals, when you're attuned to them, really like massage in the butt hips, which is the area of the sacral and root chakras. Have you found this to be true? P.S. Especially in captive wildlife, since by definition these animals have complex trauma, PTSD, and developmental trauma. Like humans, trauma can cause the nervous system to become misattuned."
Yes, I agree. I agree with that statement. Yes. Yeah. Who was that?
That was Eileen.
Eileen Mekat. Hi, Eileen. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi. I have been doing this with my dogs, with parrots, and because the root chakra and sacral chakras are so critical for survival.
Yes.
That's what I have told myself, why they love that so much. Sometimes females you have to work longer with them, or I have had to, because of, even in some animal cultures, there is rape of females. And so you sometimes have to work a little longer with the females, but I'm wondering if I'm right in sensing that this root chakra and the sacral chakra is really
absolutely
critical.
right. Absolutely right. With all the animals, I have my cat here. She loves it. Do the same thing, and on the many horses I worked, the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're always, you said elephants, they're always standing. So I had a birth injury that is, impacted my life forever. And I'm about to have certain other surgery. But there's so much tension from trauma. And then on top of it, they're standing for so long. Like you mentioned, the temple elephants.
Yes.
It's those muscles have to be getting so much tighter, and the environment they're in too.
Yes. You need to have movement, The elephant is a nomadic animal. They're nomads. They move. Maybe they move slowly, they stop, they eat, they move again. I mean, anybody can see this. If you look at wildlife documentary, it's right there. They don't stand still. But here, what humans do in this, because they're addicted to having the glory and the spectacular, it's like a fairy tale picture, and it's such a wrong fairy tale, because everything than a fairy tale, and they have to stand still in the heat, and they have a chain on one leg and another leg and round their belly, and a mahout in the front and the back, and they have a poker, and I mean, it's just unbearable.
It's almost unbearable to listen to. I found myself having to disconnect from my emotions, even hearing you talk about the zoo animals and the photos.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful to you for doing this work. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen. Thank you for sharing. Does anyone else have anything that they'd like to add or ask before we start to wrap up? Yes, Ray.
Hi.
Hi, Elke. Nice to see you again.
Hi, nice seeing you. Yes,
Yeah,
wonderful.
it was 4.5 years ago. Yeah.
Yes.
I was there when they brought Dunda in to beat her. I was on workman's comp at that time, but I was there when it happened.
Right, yes.
I was there when it all happened, and I saw the results of the beating. When I don't want to get into it because we all went through this years ago. You were there, everybody was talking about it. When you first approached her, knowing your sense of touch, was she afraid of hands? Was she afraid for you to even touch her because she had been beaten so severely?
I couldn't say that because, she was already a little bit at the Oakland Zoo when I got there. And I think they were very, very sensitive to her. So yes, she was like a little bit, but nothing big. I made so many breakthroughs with her. But it had to be really carefully, slowly done. and giving her lots of space. And so, yeah, she was not, in my experience, was not really a big thing that I couldn't touch her,
Would she direct you? Like some of the times we were one of the last of a dying breed, they said, because we actually worked in with them. We took care of them. We were, 24/7. We were with them most of the time. And every now and then they would direct you to a spot on their body that wasn't feeling good. They would actually take your hand and direct you to that spot. Would she do that with you? Like, would she say, today my head's really hurting me, or, my side? Okay.
Yeah, she did. She
Okay.
did. She actually really, really loved. She put her head down with me, and for me to work where she had all the beating received, and I could work there, and she wanted that. She was
Good.
really good about that.
Well, she was lucky to have you.
Yes.
No, she was. No, listen, I grew up where they beat them all. That's what they did. That's how they were treated. But to have somebody come in with a soft touch is really rare in that business. You know it.
Yeah.
I'm glad you did. It makes me feel better about it.
I did all that. And, I did, I massaged her tongue so many times always. And she loved that, all, and her tail and everything. It made such an impact to see her, because she was in the beginning in 97, when I worked with her there. She was still, and that happened in 1988, right?
Yes, in 88. Yeah, in 88.
So that was many years later, and I still could see her being, you have to be very delicate with her, and the Sue stuff really did that, to make always comforting vocalization to her, speaking softly with her, and so. But then after I'm doing this regular body work, I think she got better and better, and have less of this. The responses were, oh, there's a noise, what is this? Like that kind of, and that faded away.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the ironic thing about it, out of all the Africans that were there, when I worked with them, she's the only one that was still alive at the end. She must have had strong fortitude compared to some of the other ones, because she was, after what she went through, and I know the people that beat her, and that was as close as you can get to beating an elephant to death. And she came back, and she was the last one standing. So she must have gotten good care, not only with you, but with the people at the zoo.
Oh, yeah. Colleen was wonderful with her, they were all particularly mindful of the history. Yeah. So, yeah, thank you for that.
Well, thanks for you for taking care of her.
Yes, it was so sad when she left. But she lived for 50. She was 50 when she died, and she had a stroke. She was very quick,
Yeah, Peach, she was like 58 when she died at the Lincoln Park Zoo. So if they're taken care of, they can live long enough.
Yeah.
So thanks again.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ray. Thanks for your question.
Elke, I have a question for you. You've worked in this field for so long, and I also have worked in the human trauma field. So there's a lot that's very similar. And I think when you first talked about they work in a system, right? It's the same in a human system. They work within a system. But I think one thing that you said that is very right on the money is in order to do this work and to do it well and right for the being you're working with, you have to begin with your own work, right? It's your own internal journey and your own healing and reconnection, I think, that needs to happen. And I think personally, that's one of the disconnects that occurs in all trauma healing, because I think it's all universal anyway, right? So I think, we live in a traumatogenic world, so we're all traumatized in some way. And if we don't do that work ourselves, we can never be who we need to be, right, to that person that we're trying to help. So I think that's our first disconnect in any of this anyway, whether we're talking about humans or animals. But so that's just a side little personal comment. But I think one thing that you bring is you've done this for so long, and I think that's been part of the beauty of this series, is that so many of you have worked in this field for 20, 30, whatever years. So you've seen the arc even in this work, right? And so I guess, part of what we try to do here at Carullos with these is, where are we heading, right? What is the next transformation, or what is the next transition, or what do we need to do to continue to move this forward? And so, you've spoken about this has been a frustrating journey for you, but I guess it's helpful to know that there has been change in that. So like, what has been some of the significant change you've seen? And maybe what is the next piece of significant change you see us on the edge of, right? And so how can those of us that are listening help with the next step, the next piece of movement, the next arc, if you will? Like, you have insight into that none of us do, because we haven't done it, and we haven't done it for the length of time you have. So if you could share some of your insights on that, I think that would be very, very helpful. And I also say thank you for the work you're doing. It is beyond priceless. It is beyond this world, quite frankly, and it is a gift that you certainly have to have created these relationships, and it's a testament to who you are. So on behalf of all of us, thank you greatly. So
yes, well, I want to say to that you just have to be patient. You have to bring the message, something for the better of the animal, for all beings. You have to speak up and share that. And I do that. I have done that. But you have to also watch. You can't overdo it. People have blockages, and they don't want to hear more. And so you deal with that fine line. How much do I say? What do I not say? Sometimes I find myself, oh God, I want to say something here. Can I say it? Is it received? Or is it make a wall come up? So, and I had that situation too. I mean, sometimes you don't know. You have to go into the unknown about it, how it's going to turn out. And so I have made inroads in that environment I'm working in there. And maybe there were even things I made lots of inroads, I made lots of changes, and sometimes I feel like they're not enough. And because I see, there is something about you work in a place where others in charge of an animal, and they do this every day, and it becomes habitual to behave in a certain way, to speak in a certain way, and it blocks to see again. It's like this looking with fresh eyes. Yeah, you're looking like you have never been before. And I often have tried really to look, and I don't know if I'm always successful, but sometimes see something new. What did I miss? And I'm sure I miss things, but that's what I think is important. And then maybe speak up on that. And then you have to also back off a little bit, So I think I can only say people with a heart for animals and really made this their mission to create a better world for them, that they just have to keep doing, keep speaking, keep making their contribution. And it can be an inch, it can be a half inch, whatever it is. But I see this as the only possibility. And people who write about it, yes, and people can read about it. But I feel like it's really a tedious work to move the hearts of people when they are stuck in a certain place, right? And maybe it's out of fear or whatever it is, why, or maybe it can be jealousy of you. She has something I don't have. I don't want to be told, or various reasons. And you have to accept that. That's just one of the realities we deal with, But I must say, because I'm so long in this, I see how much the internet has actually, as much as some of them don't like the internet because all the chatter and stuff, but there is a lot happening with animals. And these animal videos people post are just endearing to see some different species act and play together and can coexist. I think it's beautiful. And there was a time there never was anything out there, and now we see it, And I have also noticed that, I'm so engaged with also conservation and how scientists have talked about the wild animals and their connections, and how there are now famous elephant scientists speak about feelings and speaking from the heart. It's so wonderful to see that. That change really happened. And that's too big to applaud. So.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Elke. And thank you, Jenny. Thank you for your question and comments. Would anyone else like to add anything or ask a question before we wrap up? I know we do have some comments.
Go ahead, Mike. Mike, you're muted.
While you're on that subject of introducing this to a broader range of society, do you think it's time to introduce these modalities in the medical and veterinary schools?
Absolutely.
How do you, I think there's a resistance to that. I look at some of the individuals that have done that. Avoiding cardiac surgery is one of the things they've done. By using meditation and diet and exercise, and you can do the same thing with animals. But if there's a lack of, if there's a beginning of interest in this in veterinary and medical schools across this country and other countries, maybe we should start to move forward with that, because these modalities, another thing that blocks that is economics. I think that these doctors and veterinarians are pushed to the limit to turn as many patients as and these things take time. So you're trying to turn over as many patients as you can in a day. And sometimes the work is shoddy and it doesn't get to the root. You're talking about autonomic nervous system, the immune system, the hypothalamic relay system, bringing these all together and using techniques to enhance those systems. And it takes time. So maybe we ought to find a way to really introduce this to open schools. I think there are University of California, Davis, I think would be open. I'm not sure the school I went to would be ready for it yet, but it might. But what would you think about how could we begin to do that?
Well, I totally agree with you. It's so essential. I mean, to bring something like this, there's a surgery of an animal, and then they have to recover from that. If you use the Tellington Touch, it's so wonderful to bring them back, and it's you make another connection. You make another connection with the being under your hands, not just doing surgery, to also being lovingly bringing them back to the world out of it. It's super important, I think, and it's missing in the medical community because it's so technical. It's so technical, everything. And you can, if you look up Linda Tellington Jones, I mean, she has some connections with veterinarians. They have stated on the Tellington Touch, there is some information out on that, but it is not broadly. I mean, it should be embraced by the veterinarians. They would have better results. The recovery would be better of the animal. Sometimes you have complications. If you get this working the whole system with the Tellington Touch, it benefits everything. And yeah, I agree. We need that. I mean, we really need that. We need a shift, But I mean, you can look at also how many people think massage is a good thing for you. How many doctors? I mean, I'm from Germany. In Germany, it's a total thing to get a massage. My mother had breast cancer and she got lymphatic massage prescription. Maybe that happens here and there. For a long time, I'd never heard a word about it, that this is something they do in this country. You know?
Well, in this country, homeopathy is still fought. They fight against it. And I've used homeopathic approaches through the years when it's necessary. Sometimes chronic disease responds much better to alternative medicine than it does allopathic medicine. And that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And they won't accept that. Allopathic medicine in this country has to carry the day. And, it's just ingrained in the philosophy of medicine. In this, I think Europe and the Orient are much more oriented to alternative medicine.
Exactly.
But here, very difficult.
Very slow pace going into different. I live in Santa Cruz. We have more people who are really into alternative medicine. And so when you go to a doctor, then they know that they now have patients who are not going with all the medicines in the Western way, and they do other things. I mean, I have a naturopath I go to. I have my Western doctor. I do my tests, but then everything else I mostly do alternative, and that had served me personally very well.
Yeah.
So we have more work to do, lots more work to do. Yeah. I mean, we need a more humane system for all beings, and not only oriented on how much money you can make and how fast you can a person go in and out. And, I mean, I listen to veterinarians, people tell me about this and that veterinarians, and I said, oh, you don't have to go to that person. There's maybe somebody else who has a little different approach.
Absolutely. Yeah. Really appreciate your input on all this, because it's important. And I really believe that we need to incorporate these modalities where they're appropriate. Some, you can't go in and you got to take an appendix out when you burst an appendix. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But when you've got these other chronic problems, you should go to alternative approaches, which are much more effective than using steroids or,
Exactly.
the route. I mean, I'm sure you're very familiar with it.
Yes.
And very harmful over the long run.
Yeah, I know. So thank you for your comments. It's wonderful to talk to all of you here.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks so much. Eileen, do you have your hand raised?
I just wanted to kind of add, when we're talking about what could be done with veterinarians, is that I think my experience is my alternative and spiritual ideas about animals were often it was the eye roll, okay, fine, whatever you want to do. And they would go along with it, but did not believe in it. Very similar to human medical institution. So it's an institution. And I think the way to do it, and what Mike's talking about, is to have a whole program that can be presented. And we need the scientific underpinnings, because vets are taught very similarly to doctors to disconnect so that, you can. I've heard this from vets while they were in school, that they had to be exposed to cadavers right away and learn to disconnect their emotions. And so it's one of these other systems and institutions that needs to change. And it's slow. Even when you've got great data, it's slow. But that's something I'm interested in doing, and working with animals at their end of life as a certified doula. So that's one little way I can help. But I do think there needs to be a whole program of alternative treatment in veterinary clinics and in veterinary medicine. Thanks.
Yeah, wonderful.
What state are you from? What state? Where do you live?
I'm in New Mexico now. But most of the work I did with vets was in Minnesota with the Minnesota Vet School in the Raptor Center. And the stories I could tell and the looks I would get. But nonetheless, I persisted with what I thought was important. Like even with birds, we would tell the vets, no, the bird goes with his or her mate. You never separate them that way. That is comforting to them. If an animal was euthanized, not on site, but at the clinic, we would bring them back so the flock could process what happened, that we didn't just take them away and they disappeared, like that it wasn't, didn't need to be so fearful to get in a carrier or to leave the facility. So I find the veterinary institution, and I don't have anything good to say about the medical institution. So I find the veterinaries exactly the same, a little more open to trying new things. Like we had an epidemic in our flock, and we did all kinds of herbal remedies, cocktails in their water, stuff to support their immune system. So I think that just a whole program needs to be presented with the scientific underpinnings before it can really be accepted and taught in medical schools, veterinary schools. That's just my personal feeling, having worked with veterinarians.
Yeah, I think one issue is also there is not enough emphasis on researching alternative ways of healing. The willingness needs to be there, and we see that willingness is not how it should be. It would be so much better for every person, every human and animal, but it's so controlled. It's controlled. We don't want anything else let come in there. What maybe shakes our position. Questions our position.
Yes. I totally agree with you on that. It has to be underpinned with scientific understanding. There won't buy it. You've got to, but a lot of this is underpinned already with scientific. You know what goes on when you talk about putting hands on certain areas. And there was a guy named Hans Selye who did a lot of work on stress physiology. And I had to work with him when I was in zoo work. And the stress was what was, I talked to Gay about this, that I talked about diseases of incarceration and the situations that animals have when they're under tremendous stress. They can, when we bring in any of the great apes, they can tolerate parasites in their endemic environments. But when you put them under stress, the parasitism is not symbiotic by any means. It becomes parasitic, pathological when you add the stress to it. And understanding how that works is really important. So when you talk about all the work that you've done, you're talking about relieving a lot of that stress. All these different tracks. Well, that's well understood. So you could just transfer that information right over to science. I think, I don't know, maybe not.
Yeah, we need that. Yeah. So I never give up hope. We have to give up. We have to have hope that things are going better and that we're seeing shifts. We need them, and I'm not giving up on that. I'm just staying strong as much as I can under the circumstances.
Absolutely. Beautiful. Beautiful message. Shauna, I saw you had your hand raised at one point. Did you have something you wanted to add?
Oh no, that was just an accident. Sorry.
Okay, no worries. Just wanted
I'm
to
just
be sure you
enjoying.
had a chance.
Hi, Shana.
Hi, okay.
Yeah, Shana is a part of my group, my World Elephant Alliance member. We
Oh,
meet
Yes, it's
once
a
a month.
fantastic group.
Yes, yes. So,
And I'm really appreciating this lecture today. So thank you so much for presenting.
yeah, you're very welcome. Well, so maybe we'll wrap up. I have another appointment coming up soon.
Yes, absolutely. We can wrap up here. Thank you so much, Elke, for sharing your time with us and for being such a wonderful way to wrap up our series. I know I've learned so much today, and I'm sure everyone has here as well. And we just really appreciate you taking the time with us.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful.
And thank you to our lovely audience. We're so glad to have you all here, and we really appreciate you sharing your time with us as well. Living One will be taking a brief hiatus now for the month of April before we begin our next series, Earth Restoration and the Evolution of Human Consciousness, which will begin on May 5th at the same time, 10 a.m. Pacific time. And our first guest is here with us today. It's Mike McCoy, who has worked to provide public service, protect wildlife, conserve land, safeguard the environment, and administer veterinary care for animals for over 50 years. So we're very excited to have him on in May. And as always, if you enjoy Living One and do feel called to support Krulos, Living One, and all of our sanctuary residents, please consider donating at the link on our website, krulos.org. Once again, thank you everybody for being here, sharing your time with us. We're so excited to start our next series in a month, and we'll see you all soon. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you very much.
Have a good one, everybody. Bye.